for silent invocation followed by Pledge of Allegiance. It is, just to make sure, Rabbi Mendel is not here. Okay, we'll do silent invocation followed by the pledge. Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Here.
Councilman Cuthbert?
Here.
Councilman Green?
Here.
Vice Mayor Grubbs?
Here.
Mayor Stiltner?
Here, we have everybody in attendance tonight. Happy St. Patrick's Day. If you weren't here for the previous council meetings, we passed a motion that if you get up to speak tonight and you're not wearing green, you have to donate, was it 100 or 500? 500 to the Parks and Rec Fund. So hopefully you got your green. All right. All right, item 4, public comments on consent agenda items only. Do we have any public comments on consent agenda items? 6 through 11, come on up, Robert. Robert, where's the green, man? Come on. Go right ahead, welcome.
Council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. Item 11, First Amendment of the BIK Economic Incentive Agreement. And it talks about relocation of tortoises in the amount of $14,685 that they want to add so that the CRA reimburses them. I'm not sure that we've done that in the past or not, or the city has done that, but they're moving them, they have to be moved. I think they should pay the cost, and maybe some cost sharing, but not just the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Anybody else on consent agenda items 6 through 11?
Mr. Mayor, give me 1 second. We'll just have to have that removed. Now? Yep. I need to have it removed?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I need to have item 11 removed from consent. If I could get a motion, if I could make a motion to do that? I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to remove item 11 from the consent. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, we have 11 removed. Can I get a motion to approve items 6 through 10?
So moved.
And 5 as well.
5 through 10, so
I'm
moved.
sorry, 5 through 10, yeah. We have a
Second.
motion. We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 5 through 10. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Cuthbert?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grubbs?
Yes.
Mayor Stiltner?
Yes, that brings us to item 11, approval of the First Amendment of the BIK Economic Incentive Agreement pursuant to the Eastport CRA Redevelopment Plan and Land Department Code, Chapter 20.
Mr. Mayor, I need to declare a conflict on this particular, and I will not be voting.
Okay?
I am, my company is employed by BIC.
Understood. Any further discussion from council?
I just want to ask, actually, I have a quick question about this, Wayne. So this is an additional $14,685 for Gopher Tourists, but I thought we already gave them considerable money for this.
That's correct. It's in the package. They've gotten an incentive related to the permit fees in there, and this is an addition to it. At the time, I think when they asked, that we just modified to allowing Gopher Tortoises as one of the options. But
Right.
just adding it, because at the time they got in there, they weren't aware there were that many tortoises on the site.
Okay, because I know we agreed to do something monetarily already with them, and so, you know, actually to Robert's point,
It's a relatively new addition that Gopher Tortoise relocation is an eligible activity for the incentive.
Okay. All right.
Anything else? Tracy, anything? No?
Nope.
No. All right, nothing else. We'll have the clerk call the roll with Councilman Green abstaining.
I didn't hear the motion.
Get a motion to approve item 11 on the consent agenda.
Thank
And I'll
you.
second it for
Thank you.
record.
Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Cuthbert?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Abstain?
Vice Mayor Grubbs?
Yes.
Mayor Stiltner?
Yes, 4-0 with 1 abstain. Moving us to item C, we will recess as the council and magically appear as the Town Center CRA for the regular meeting.
Is that me again?
You want to say that was Town Center?
You worked outside.
All right. If I could get I want to call to order the annual meeting of the Port Orange Town Center Community Redevelopment Agency. Would you call the roll?
Scott Stiltner,
Here.
Jonathan Foley,
Here.
Tracy Grubbs,
Here.
Sean Gephardt,
Here.
Lance Green.
Here. All right, so can I get a motion to elect a chairman?
I'll make a motion to nominate Councilman Sean Gephardt as the chairman.
A second?
I have a motion and a second. Any other motions? Being none, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Can I get a motion for the vice chair?
Go ahead, Sean. You can nominate me.
All right, I'll make a motion that we nominate Scott Stiltner to be vice chair.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Is there any objection to the notice of this meeting? Hearing none, the notice is accepted. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 5th, 2025 regular meeting, December 9th, 2025?
Real quick point of order here. Sorry, real quick point of order, Matt.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But did we not just elect Sean as the new chairman? Is he not supposed to take over at item 4?
congrats, Sean.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank
Perfect.
you. Yeah,
She's all
appreciate
yours.
that. Can't wait till the next one comes up. Yeah, does it pay the same?
You were doing a fantastic
Pays
job
double.
there.
This one pays double.
Former Chairman Green. but-
Okay, being the chair, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 5th, 2025 regular meeting and December 9th, 2025 joint special meeting with the city council?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Jonathan Foley, Tracy
Yes.
Grubbs,
Yes.
Sean Gephardt,
Yes.
Lance Green.
Yes.
All right, now, item number 5 is the Port Orange Town Center CRA annual report for year ending 2024-25. Do I have a motion to accept the year 2024-225 annual report for the Port Orange Town Center Community Redevelopment Agency?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Jonathan Foley,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Sean Gephardt,
Yes.
Lance Green.
Yes.
Okay, do we have, this is a public hearing, do we have any public comments in reference to our Town Center Community Redevelopment Agency? All right, being none, council, any comments?
I've got none.
None here?
No, sir.
You don't want to go on a away party?
No.
Okay. With no final comments, no further business to be brought before the members of the Port Orange Town Center Redevelopment Agency. There being none, this meeting is adjourned.
Keep it going.
All righty.
All right, we will now stay in recess as the council and revisit as the, which one are we now?
We're
Eastport
in
Business
Eastport,
Center.
and I'll take that over.
Appreciate that.
I call the annual meeting of the Eastport Business Community Center Redevelopment Agency to order. Roll call.
Scott Stiltner,
Here?
Jonathan Foley,
Here.
Tracy Grubbs,
Here.
Lance Green,
Here?
Sean Gephardt.
Here. And we have an election of a chairman. Do I have a motion to nominate a chairman?
Move to nominate Councilman Tracy Grubbs to serve as the chairman of the Eastport Business Center Community Redevelopment Agency.
And I'll second that.
You can't say
I
it.
can't second it.
I will second it.
I'm so quickly to get off this thing. You second it. All right. Roll call, please.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Jonathan Foley,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Lance Green,
Oh, yes.
Sean Gephardt.
Yes. An election of vice chair. Do I have a motion to nominate a vice chairman?
Have a motion for Lance Green, vice chair.
I'll second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Jonathan Foley,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Lance Green,
Yes.
Sean Gephardt.
Yes.
Think you can
All
pass it
right,
over.
Chairman.
So I know what this just did. So, is there any objections to the notice of the meeting? Hearing no objection, the notice is accepted. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 5th through 2025 regular meeting, September 2nd, 2025 joint special meeting and the November 18th, 2026 joint special meeting.
So moved?
Second.
We call the roll?
Scott Stiltner?
Yes.
Jonathan Foley?
Yes.
Tracy Groves?
Yes.
Lance Green?
Yes.
Sean Gifford?
Yes.
Item 5, the Eastport Business Center CRA Annual Report for fiscal year 2024-25. Do I have a motion to accept the fiscal year 2024-25 annual report for the Eastport Business Center Community Redevelopment Agency?
So moved?
Second.
Get a roll call?
Scott Stiltner?
Yes.
Jonathan Foley?
Yes.
Tracy Groves?
Yes.
Lance Green?
Yes.
Sean Gifford?
Yes.
Okay, so call for public comments. Okay, final comments from council for CRA prior to the vote, and we voted, so I jumped that one. Sorry. Item 6 is approval of the First Amendment of the BIC Economic Incentive Agreement pursuant to the Eastport CRA Redevelopment Plan and Land Development Code, Chapter 20, Targeted Businesses. May I have a motion and a second?
So, motion to approve item 6, approval of the First Amendment of the BIK Economic Incentive Agreement pursuant to the Eastport CRA Redevelopment Plan, Land Development Code, LDC, Chapter 20.
I'll second it.
Do we have any call from public comments?
Mr. Chairman, I will be abstaining from this one as my company does business with BIC.
Okay, yes, sir. Final comments other than Lance? Hearing none. Do a call to roll?
Scott Stiltner?
Yes.
Jonathan Foley?
Yes.
Tracy Groves?
Yes.
Lance Green?
Abstain?
Sean Gifford?
Yes.
Any further business to brought before us for the members of the Eastport CRA Redevelopment Agency? Being none, we'll adjourn to our normal council minutes and meeting.
All right, and that'll bring the council back into session. Section E, recognition and proclamations. I've got a couple here to read for you guys tonight. Whereas since our nation's founding, America's sons and daughters have given their lives in service to our country. Each day, as Americans, we enjoy the freedom of peace, prosperity, and independence. These are virtues upon which the United States was built and ideals that bind us together as a nation. And whereas 59 years ago, in 1967, nearly 500,000 American troops served in South Vietnam, along with approximately 850,000 troops of our allies. And whereas on Vietnam War Veterans Day, we pause to remember that freedom comes at a great cost. Throughout history, American military personnel have stood tall to oppose the enemies of freedom. Many of these brave servicemen and women gave their lives to defend our liberty and uphold the promise of our democracy. And whereas Vietnam Veterans of American Chapter 1048 seek to preserve the strength, camaraderie among its members and maintain true allegiance to the government of the United States of America. Now therefore, I, Scott Stiltner, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, Florida, do hereby present this proclamation in remembrance of Vietnam War Veterans Day and urge all citizens to show respect for our veterans and continue to remember and appreciate the sacrifices they have made for freedom. And this one is for Sunshine Week. Whereas James Madison, the father of the federal Constitution, wrote that consent of the governed requires that people be able to arm themselves with the power which knowledge gives us. And whereas every citizen in our participatory democracy has an inherent right to access to government meetings and public records. And whereas an open and accessible government is vital to establishing and maintaining the people's trust and confidence in their government and in the government's ability to effectively serve its citizens. And whereas the City of Port Orange is committed to openness and transparency in all aspects of its operations and seeks to set standards in this regard. Now therefore, I, Scott Stiltner, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, Florida, do hereby proclaim the week of March 15th through the 21st, 2026 as Sunshine Week in Florida. All right. Public participation, I think we've got one here. Dan Morse, come on up. to see you, my friend.
How you doing? My name is Dan Morris, and my address is 3393 Torrey Boulevard in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And I'm here tonight, first of all, to say good evening, Mayor Stiltner, Vice Mayor Krebs, and all the councilmen and Wayne. I'm just here to really do two things. One, I'm representing the South Daytona Port Orange, or is it Port Orange South Daytona Chamber. I've been in my 7th year of being on the board. I'm the immediate past chair. It's been wonderful to be around all of you and working with Port Orange, our most important client. So I'm taking notes, and I'll give an update at our next board meeting. Secondly, I'm here representing a new business I started called Pet Evolution, and we opened about 7 weeks ago. And I want to let you know that working with the planning department, Tim Berman, all of the inspectors, all of the permitting, you name it, was outstanding. And I can tell you from a franchise that has 25 locations, they came back and said Port Orange was probably the best they've ever worked with. It was so incredibly smooth. Not that they cut us any breaks, but they certainly let us know how to fix a problem if we saw it, and that got fixed very quickly. I'm lucky I had a great construction manager, a wonderful construction team, and just great people that work for me. It's always been a dream to have a business in Port Orange, so I'm very excited. If you don't know it, I'm a pet lover. So part of the mission of Pet Evolution is to help pets live a good life. And if you've ever seen pets that haven't been treated right in a grooming or bathing or just don't have great food, it brings a tear to your eyes. So this business, we've got the greatest people. I can let you know tonight that we've been open for 7 weeks. Just today, we've reached 100 5-star reviews.
Wow.
If you get a chance to read them, it'll bring a tear to your eye because that's what we're here to do. So thank you for all of the support that you've given us, and I look forward to making Pet Evolution a landmark in this city.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Very good. Good to see you. All right, that'll bring us to comments and additional items, starting with council. I'll go first tonight. I want to say a week ago Saturday, we had the opening day for our Little League baseball and softball here in the city of Port Orange through our Parks and Rec program. Parks and Rec did an incredible job. Pun intended when they say they knocked it out of the park. The fields looked great. The attendance was awesome. It's great to see all the kids out there, and we appreciate you guys, including us, to celebrate that opening day. It's a blast to go out there and see how excited those kids are to get out there and run around and make some friends and learn a little bit about playing baseball and softball. So great job, Parks and Rec. We appreciate that. This one actually is for council as a whole. I'd like to get your consensus on something. We have on the agenda every meeting an opportunity for the city attorney and the city manager to make comments. I would like to get your, there's 3 things that I think are all really, really important to all of us that I want to make sure always stay in the forefront, even if there's not something specific tied to it on the agenda. So I'd like to have y'all's consensus for the city manager section that we add a subsection. Subsection 1 would be that he always gives us an update on stormwater mitigation projects, what's going on with any of the funding mechanisms and things like that. And sometimes there's going to be just a couple of brief things that Wayne will be able to share with us, and sometimes there might be some more in depth. But I want to make sure that that stays in the forefront of the city council and that it's always on our radar and the public realizes that and sees that. The second item I would like to always have some kind of a comment on is an update on where we are with our Parks and Rec bond projects. That's a big one. There's a lot. The public voted on that. They entrusted us to get those projects going, and they have funded those things, and I want to make sure that also there's some comments on that, just where we're at in those things. There won't be always things that need our vote, but we need to be able to speak to them, because I've actually had several people from the opening day at Parks and Rec, where we have some of these things, so we just need to have those conversations briefly from the city manager. And the third thing will be the Riverwalk project area. What's going on with that? Comments that can be there. I know to some degree, Wayne, that there will be some things with that particular one for sure, and actually with the other one that may involve property and our real estate folks and things like that that may need to stay between you and your staff as they work through some of those details, because we always want the citizens to get the best bang for the buck, and sometimes we got to be careful about things that get set up here, but all that will wash out in the public eye anyhow. So I'd just like to see if you guys are good with that and make sure we've got consensus that we'll add that to the agenda. It'll just be a brief section on there that he'll know, hey, we want you to at least touch on these 3 things every time. So you guys good with that?
I agree with that, yeah.
Sean, good with that? You guys good with that? Okay. Wayne, any questions on that one?
Like, no.
Okay. I just want to make sure, you know, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same board, on the same page with that stuff. So, we had a really unusual and stressful couple of days over the past weekend involving some incidents that involved our police department and our surrounding law enforcement agencies. Brief comments. A lot of that stuff is still under investigation, but I just want to say how proud I am of our police officers and our local law enforcement and EMS partners and fire for all of the things they do. And we have seen in the past weekend things come out of nowhere when you least expect them. You know, they're not always Friday night, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes they're Sunday morning at 6 a.m. And sometimes they happen when officers are even on their way home. And they got to get back engaged and get involved. And so we know a South Daytona officer who was shot twice is in recovery, expected to make a recovery and is doing well, but keep him in your thoughts and prayers, as well as the appreciation of our officers that have been involved in some really unusual incidents. And just for a comment about this, I watched an interview by Sheriff Chitwood, I think it was yesterday or today. They're always colorful. But you know, he made a comment about something that I think truly needs to be understood. You know, the state of Florida is a very pro-Second Amendment state. And with legislative changes, we are going to see, when I say we, I mean our law enforcement professionals and residents of Port Orange, more and more and more people carrying guns. And there's almost an assumption that everybody you encounter has one because they can now. And that's okay. But I think that to say that when people start looking at these things and going, why are we having more and more and more gun-related incidents? Well, because we have the freedoms of the Second Amendment, and we value those in the state of Florida. Inherently, there are going to be more out there. And then I also think you've got the element of mental health, and those roads don't always align. And so there's just going to be things like that are going to happen. So, but I'm proud of the way our folks are responding and doing the best. They will always learn from it. There will always be opportunities for debriefings with those folks to learn more and more about that. But nonetheless, they know that they have our support, and that's what's really important to us. So, and that's all I got for right now. How about you, Reed?
No, I think you covered a lot of it, especially just our first responders. You know, I spend a lot of time actually because of my job on social media, and so I see not only Facebook but Instagram and TikTok. And TikTok has a great way of getting things in front of you very quickly as they happen. And to see what's going on in our county right now with spring break and things is really crazy. So not only are my thoughts and prayers with all of our officers as they're out there serving here in Port Orange, but also with the whole county. And really appreciate our fire department today and EMS and everything. They had to spring into action. And like you said, it just goes to show it's not always Friday at 10:30 at night. It's well said. So, but no, otherwise I think I'm good.
Tracy?
Now, echoing the both of y'all, the PD, just so blessed that, you know, as tragic as Sunday was, that everybody is safe, and thoughts and prayers out to the whole team. So can't say anything more than that. I'm glad everybody is good. One of the things you said earlier with Wayne dealing with the projects, I had a couple individuals reach out to me, and it's always trying to make sure that we have the water projects in front of people so they know that we haven't forgotten. And I would just publicly just wanted to make sure that if he's out there listening, I've left a message for him. But the Cambridge project literally starts this spring. Now, saying it starts this spring doesn't mean it gets completed in the spring. It's a long, thought-out project. It will finish in the spring of probably 2027. It's about a year to do it. So that Cambridge project starts here in a couple months. Saying that, though, we finishing up a project that if you haven't been down on Jackson Street and Oak Street and tying another project in with Parks and Recs with a Memorial Park, that whole area has transformed. And it's worth a drive to go down there and see everything that's taken place, because it's just turning out beautifully. So I think the residents down there with the stormwater and what has happened there is going to be great. Parks and Rec, thank you for the extra signage on the boat ramp area. Great placement. That's going to help out for the frustrations as the hot weather comes back. It was here, but it disappeared today. So hopefully the hot weather will come back again. But with Dan and Pet Evolution, thank you for reaching out to Art House. I'm going to take up my quick minute because of Art House at the end. One of the things Art House did is they contracted with Pet Evolution and painted the side of the building as a mural for the pets. It is absolutely cool what they did. Now, sitting on the board of Art House, the proceeds that came out of that actually goes back to the city in some way, because what they're going to do is the proceeds they profited off of that actually goes to the mural project for the Down Under, the bridge, for all the columns that they're doing. So they're raising monies in different ways. So this was a way for a business in Port Orange to support them, and then in turn it comes back around and they're supporting back to the city. So a lot of things happening inside the city with those type of pieces. So thank you for the opportunity. That's it.
All right. Go ahead, Sean.
So obviously the last couple weeks with our fire department and police department has been excruciating to watch, and some of the things that have happened, and so proud of the young people that work with those departments and what they're going through and the way they're handling things. It's amazing. Which brings me to a point that one of the things that we've done over the last 2 years is gone to Tallahassee for local issues, primarily around flooding and trying to capture revenue that they receive up there coming back into our city. But I think we really need to be pushing for legislation that keeps criminals in jail, because it looks like the majority of everything that's happening, if you look at the history of the person that's committing the crime, they've committed it before. And when does it end? It usually ends when they finally kill somebody and now they're locked up for life or maybe close to it. And that's, to me, just it's horrible to see victims victimized again over and over again by the same perpetrators. I mean, just pull the reports of who gets arrested, and they've been there before. And with social media now, they'll even tell you, oh, this guy's 10th mugshot. 10th! So I don't know what we can do as a city the next time we go to Tallahassee and start pushing something has to change. And I've been complaining about this for years. It's so sad to see repeat offenses. And I know we can't incarcerate everybody forever, but the length of these offenses are offensive to me and my family and the citizens of our city. We're trying to protect them, and then before he gets to report them, they're probably back out on the street. And something's got to be done. And we got to make it. And I don't think we were up in Tallahassee. No one was up there making that awareness. And we just see it over and over again, whether it's in our city, South Daytona, New Smyrna Beach, Daytona. It's really it's almost embarrassing that we have to deal with that. With that being said, I'm sorry I missed the opening day for spring baseball, but I was not in town. And did you throw a strike?
I did.
Oh, good, very good.
And the 9-year-old young lady that was catching, she was on it. Like, I thought for a moment she was going to visualize somebody stealing second and throw down.
All right.
I mean, she was ready for it. She was all about it. Yeah, it was a great time. We missed you.
And we get a city's manager's report every week. Does that go out to the public as well? Because that's got some great information
Yeah, I
on
think-
what we're doing.
It is definitely a public document. I think that there's a lot of different ways that information gets out there for sure. Some people are going to watch meetings. Some people are going to read things like that. Some people are going to the city social media pages, things like that. If you're, go ahead, we'll finish now.
So yeah, I'm curious if Mr. Springer, does that go to like everyone who has a water account, or is it just to us?
The
And then-
newsletter goes to everyone who has the water account.
Okay.
That
excellent.
is the public facing document.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's some great information. So we're not keeping anyone in the dark if they just open that up and look, because there's some remarkable things going on in the city that we just don't talk about up here. But that report has it every week, and I think that's phenomenal. So keep up the good work there. That's all I have.
Mr. Green.
Well, I think you guys just about covered it all, but again, I'm gonna just say kudos to the rec department, great job on opening day, that was fantastic once again. Again, I'm not an overly religious guy, but I'm gonna say, man, our police department was blessed this weekend with some of the events that happened, and thank God they were protected. I am still going to say that I do feel that there is a need for our community to have a direct, non-emergency line to the police department. So, I'm still not really getting, the information I need to get on that, but, you know, I know there's a lot entailed because it's integrated with the sheriff, but I still feel the need. So, other than that, I'll leave it at that.
All right. Anything else, Timothy? No? All right. Mr. City Attorney?
None for tonight.
Nothing? Huh. Okay. Mr. City Manager?
You didn't have a list of 3 things for him to report on.
By the way, I didn't, I guess I should have prefaced that you don't necessarily have to do that this.
I got a couple of them I can, and I do want to start the same thing that you guys have all been saying about our police and fire departments. So public safety is the city's top priority. It has been strategically where we focus everything on. And spent a lot of time on the phone with the police chief and the fire chief for the last couple of days and seeing them in person. And that's usually not a sign that things are going really well. But the type of person that it takes to do those jobs, I'm an office person. I don't do that for a living. And the bravery and the skill set it takes to be that kind of person and do that job day to day, and the things that they see and the risks that they put themselves in is truly special. And Port Orange is extremely fortunate to have the chiefs that we have and have all the people in all those departments that do that work. And I know when I talk to them, I know we've got the best out there protecting our citizens. No matter what those bad guys are going to do, we have a solid group of people out there. I'm very proud of them and appreciate everything that they do for us in that. So thank you all for all what you've done. And then on to the stuff that you've asked me about. So for stormwater, Cambridge, we've talked about this recently. So this is the first of the major flooding projects to get close to construction. So it's already been mentioned once tonight. It's the area, it's the second largest area where we've seen flooding. The project is finished design and permitting. It's getting ready to go out to bid, so construction will start this spring. So that's the first major project where you will see, it will be under construction during hurricane season. It will not be completed until the 27 season, but it will be under construction. The design for the second largest area, the Sugar Forest project, is approaching 60% now. So we're moving from conceptual drawings into ones that have way more engineering detail and starting to move forward with that project and getting it closer. There's also movement on some of the Transform 386 projects, which, as we talked about before, once they became Transform 386, the county takes over control of the project. So Portona and Powers are both projects that you're likely to see activity coming on first. So those are the first two that we have contracts getting close with the county to start moving those forward. The Portona project is one of the ones where we've got some money in the budget from the state this year. So if we're fortunate when they come back together to adopt a budget in Tallahassee, we may get some money for that project moving forward. One of the things we've been doing, so everybody who has any kind of trees in their yards has probably had 15 to 20 bags every 2 weeks of leaves in your yard. So fortunately, we have 4 street sweepers, and they have been out constantly. We were doing pretty good until yesterday when the rain came and then knocked everything down and washed it right down into the drains. So they have been out, they were out all day the day before, and then it's still clogged up out here in front because so many leaves, but they have spent hours and hours and hours running around. So I know a number of the residents in the neighborhoods, the drivers pay attention to where they go, and they know the neighborhoods where we have the hardest challenges with all these leaves. And so they've been out in those hard hit areas all day long today. We've got a couple of thanks from citizens for doing that. So in addition to the larger projects, I think you also mentioned Jackson Oak being almost done. For anybody that ever been on that road when it was just a big open ditch, to go see what it looks like now, to go down Jackson and see that sidewalk, how much safer it is as a place to be. So there's maintenance, there's smaller projects, there's bigger projects. The maintenance never ends. It's like anybody with their own grass and yards. So we just constantly keep going out there, and I think one of you guys has mentioned that that's in the newsletter fairly frequently too, all the maintenance that's going on. So it's a multi-pronged approach of major projects, middle-sized projects, small projects, and nonstop maintenance. So that's what's going on with that. The parks project, so city center expansion, so we flipped land with the county or the school board, and we got the park over here. We've got final design plans now in for those fields, so that will be going out to bid and starting construction here in the next several months, because that's ready to go. So that's the first of those big projects you'll see start moving forward. And then on Riverwalk, so that's been out now for about a month and a half or so. We had a bunch of preliminary calls, and early on we were getting a lot of calls for people that were just looking to do apartments. So we kind of made it clear. I had a couple of pretty, hey, look, this is not the direction we're going. We don't just want to see an apartment down there. And then within like 3 or 4 days of that, we got another call from a company out of Tampa. And that was probably, I would say, for just meet and greet, like, hey, who are you? What are you about? What are you thinking? They're going to come over here in a couple of weeks and see us and visit the site. But that was as close to I said when we were getting off the phone, I said that ballpark we're in is a small ballpark, more like Wrigley Field, not a big giant one. We were actually that close together in concept. Now it's an early meeting and a concept meeting, but this group fully understood the idea of mixed use. The idea that the critical thing for us is a destination, a place for people who live here, because most of us are probably not going to go live in one of those apartments down there. We get that helps, because you're going to have people that can afford that kind of an apartment. They probably will spend $8 on coffee. But for most of us, you're not going to go down there that much. And so they got the idea that some rooftop amenity and a cluster of entertainment and dining options down there to work with Tiki Docks is where to go. So in that one was probably the most positive call I've had since back in the Bristol era, as far as somebody on the phone saying what we wanted to hear. It's got to move from saying what we want to hear to putting a dollar amount out there and showing up and signing contracts. But that was good, given the uncertainty in the market and the fact that interest rates are they didn't keep going down like we thought they might. We weren't really sure what might come out of this, but that's a step in the right direction. So we're making progress there. As they come and visit on site or we get other calls, I'll continue to brief you guys on that. I think that's covered all 3 of them.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting for tonight. Job well done.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have
anything else though.
Yeah, I just comment, I do want to say thank you, Wayne. You have done a very good job keeping our real estate agents in check. He flat out tells them, don't even waste time just bringing in some big old apartment complex. So I appreciate him and his staff, and actually our real estate representatives buying in fully and understanding the vision and what that project area is has to be in terms of scope and sticking to that, because it's not just about finding the first one that steps up, it's the right one. So appreciate that.
Can I ask a question on that? So Wayne, on that though, did we reach out maybe to some of the other respondents to the RFP before Bristol to see if they were still interested?
They have, because Colliers is so large, they have their own international listing. It's been posted on all the services, and then the people that were around, they have contacted them as well. I think at least one of them is, one of them though, one of the ones that we had before turns out to be maybe more of a buy and hold person. So they've got other projects in the region that they have bought the property and then haven't actually built anything, going back to the same time we started with Bristol. So the other thing we're pushing is that we're not interested in that. It's not an investment. Don't buy the land and wait 10 years to build on it. We want to see something coming out of the ground. So they're trying to find those people who respond to that correctly, but they have reached out, yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Item 17, Citizen Advisory Board for the TPO. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Bobby Ball with the CAC for the TPO. We had our regular monthly meeting. It was a pretty standard meeting for us, a couple of updates to the 2-year and the 5-year work programs. Nothing really to speak of, other than I did volunteer and got reappointed to be on the TIP subcommittee ranking group, which is actually puts all the Port Orange projects up there near the top as much as I can. So that's the best I could do there. And then the only other interesting project was Clyde Morris Boulevard is looks like it's going to go to construction. It's not a Port Orange project, but it's still between Bellevue Avenue and just past ISB, and they're doing some streetscape changes and a tunnel underneath the underneath the road, connecting the two sides of the street for Riddle. So just an interesting project that's coming up. So.
Very good.
That's it.
Any questions for Bobby?
Thank you.
No?
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Item 18, first reading of ordinance number 2026-2.
It's an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida relating to comprehensive planning, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, amending the future land use designation for approximately 56.53 acres, consisting of 52.96 acres from Volusia County Agricultural Resource 1 unit per 10 acres, and approximately 3.57 acres from Volusia County Urban Low Intensity 0 to 4 acres, 0 to 4 units per acre. To the City of Port Orange Rural Transition 0 to 2 units per acre for property generally located north of Charles Street and west of Airport Road, authorizing transmittal to required agencies, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and effective date.
Can I get a motion and a second to put the item on the floor? and approval?
Get a motion for ordinance 2026-2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we need to open item 19 as well?
Yes, please.
All right, we'll do that now. Item 19 is the first reading of ordinance number 2026-3.
That's an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning of approximately 56.53 acres, consisting of 52.96 acres from Volusia County A1 Prime Agriculture and approximately 3.57 acres from Volusia County A2 Rural Agricultural to City of Port Orange R20SF Single Family Residential for property generally located north of Charles Street and west of Airport Road, authorizing revisions to the official zoning atlas, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Get a motion for ordinance number 2026-3.
I'll second that too.
We have a motion and a second on the floor.
Good evening, Penelope Cruz, Planning. As was stated, the subject property is located on the west side of Airport Road, north of Charles Street. It was annexed into the City of Port Orange in June 2025. In October of 2025, the applicant came forward with the next steps after annexation, which is to apply for a city future land use and zoning. The applications that were submitted and brought before council in October were not approved by the city council. At that time, the applicant was proposing a future land use amendment and rezoning to a planned unit development for a 113 unit single family home development on the subject property. Now, according to the Land Development Code, when a rezoning application is denied by city council, a subsequent application for a similar rezoning on any property of the same parcel cannot be submitted within a period of 12 months from the date of the same, from the date of that denial. The applicant has now submitted a different rezoning application. They're proposing to rezone to a conventional zoning category, not the PUD zoning category that was previously approved. They're proposing to rezone to the R20 single family zoning district. And because this current request is a different classification, a determination has been made that it is not considered a similar zoning district, and therefore they're able to move forward and we're able to consider the current requests that are before you. So just some background on that. Just like we discussed last time, the majority of the property has been cleared, vacant pasture land with a single family home, detached garage, pole barn, located on the northeast corner of the property, and based on the aerial imagery that we have access to, it appears to have been cleared pasture land for at least since 1978, if not further back. The property generally has a flat topography, slight east to west slope containing only man-made agricultural drainage features, including shallow north-south trenches, east-west drainage ditches, and a cattle pond. The only surface waters on site are the man-made agricultural ditches and the cattle pond. The environmental analysis that was provided includes a review of the Volusia County wetland mapping obtained from the county's website, which indicates that there are no jurisdictional wetlands identified on the property. And so based on this mapping, as well as other data collected in the field by their environmental consultant, the assessment concludes that does not have any jurisdictional wetlands, and there are no proposed wetlands therefore anticipated with any proposed development. So with the first item that was opened today, the applicant was requesting to change the future land use designation from 52.96 acres of Volusia County agricultural resource, and 3.57 acres of Volusia County urban low intensity to City of Port Orange rural transition, which has a density range of 0 to 2 units per acre. This rural transition future land use designation is intended for lands near Spruce Creek and its tributaries, particularly properties that lie between agricultural uses and established residential neighborhoods, with residential development limited to no more than 2 units per acre. The subject property has been reviewed and analyzed and meets the locational criteria for this future land use transition category, as it is situated adjacent to the Spruce Creek, bordered by agricultural land to the south, and developed residential neighborhoods to the north, northeast, and west. Urban services are available in the Airport Road right-of-way to serve the site, and the proposed R20SF zoning aligns with the maximum density allowed. And according to the infrastructure impact analysis in the staff report, adequate capacity exists for public infrastructure and services to accommodate the proposed amendment. With the second item that was open, the applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from 52.96 acres of Volusia County A1 and 3.57 acres of Volusia County A2 to City of Port Orange R20SF. The dimensional requirements for the R20SF category are shown here on the slide and in the staff report. According to the Land Development Code, this R20SF single-family residential zoning district is intended to function as a transitional zoning category between rural, low-density areas and medium to higher-density residential areas. And its purpose is to help protect existing agricultural areas and rural residences while also allowing for appropriate residential densities. If the future land use amendment and rezoning are approved, the developer Paytas Homes intends to submit a development application for a 50-lot, single-family residential subdivision, resulting in a density of approximately 1 dwelling unit per acre, which is consistent with and actually lower than the density of the surrounding area. So based on meeting the review criteria in each of the staff reports that were in the packet, staff is recommending approval of the proposed future land use amendment and rezoning. Staff is here to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant's development team is also here with a presentation.
Back to us?
Yep.
All right, very good. Penny, so I'm going to, I'm going to start because I want you to clarify something for me, and I'm going to ask to please do your best to talk in layman's terms, as much as you can. So, looking at these agenda items, one thing that really jumped off at me was that we have a future land use application request. I may be saying that incorrectly.
No, that's correct.
That is for 0 to 2 units per acre, which would in my mind, what that does is that paints a picture of up to about 112, 113 units. But the end game here, if I can say it that way, is the applicant wants to build 50 homes on this property, right? So, and that's basically going to be done through the zoning. So my question is, don't we have a proper designation that can be applied as the future land use designation that matches where we're trying to go? Like, if we're trying to get to 50 homes on this property that totals about 56 acres, don't we have a designation where we can do 1 unit per the acre that matches that and mirrors that? Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Explain the difference between future land use designation versus zoning and how that ties together.
Yeah, so every property has a future land use designation and a zoning designation. The future land use designation's in the comprehensive plan. It's kind of the larger overarching, kind of like big picture. There's usually a range of density. We have to analyze the maximum when we do our analysis, and then your zoning has to be consistent with the land use. So the zoning can never allow more density than the land use. It can allow less, but you generally want to find something that's within that range. We have something called a future land use and zoning matrix, compatibility matrix. And so every future land use is on one side, and next to it there's a list of zoning categories that are consistent with the future land use that basically would fit within that range of density that's allowed. R20SF is one of the zoning categories that's listed as a consistent zoning category for the rural transition, which is why the applicant chose that one, because at the time when they were contemplating reapplying, They weren't sure exactly of a layout and exactly how many fewer lots they wanted to come back with, like fewer than the original 113. So the R20, although it's not the 1 acre lot zoning, the R20 allowed them to cluster the lots and provide for more open space and more stormwater, while still just limiting the number of lots. The engineer of record basically told us, when you're doing conventional zoning, it's not like a PUD where you can negotiate some things and have some deviations and some flexibility written into your master development agreement. With conventional zoning, you're following the code black and white. There's not really a lot of wiggle room. So when trying to put together a concept plan for their client, they basically said in order to meet all of the standards of the land development code, really all they could fit was 50 lots. Like, they basically said that this is what we're getting to meet all the drainage requirements, the city standards for roadway widths, sidewalks on either side, minimum lot sizes, open space on the lots and everything, the buffers, tree preservation. That's all they can fit is 50 lots. So although if you take the 20,000 square foot lot and kind of divide it into the total acreage, yeah, the raw number gives more than 50 lots, but they can't, their engineer has said he can't fit more than 50 on the property. And so that's why they're saying that this is what, if this gets approved, this is what we're coming back with. But at the time, they chose that category versus some of the other ones that are listed as compatible zoning to give them the flexibility to cluster the lots and have flexibility to have more open space and stormwater.
So when you say in at the time, if today was the at the time moment, you could apply that other future land use designation and still have the same end result.
You mean a different zoning category?
Well, I don't know if it's zoning or if it's a future.
The future land use is, they're not,
So
they've
there's-
never proposed a different land use. The land use is always 0 to 2. The
But
zoning.
isn't there a one?
No, we didn't, not, well, we have agriculture,
Okay,
but yeah, it's,
so there's no land use zone or designation for one residential unit per acre?
we have the ag, I think it's the ag, yeah, the ag, but they
Like
didn't,
an
yeah.
estate homes designation or something?
Yeah, the agriculture, but that
You
was,
follow what I'm-
yeah.
you follow what I'm asking,
Yes,
what I'm-
yes,
what I'm getting
yeah,
at. Okay.
that was never really discussed, a different land use category, it was more the zoning, looking at a different zoning, and we do have different zoning categories that have larger lot sizes, but again, this is the one that they decided to go with, and they could speak to it more because of, at the time, they were trying to have that flexibility to cluster the lots and make sure they had enough design space to meet minimum lot standard requirements, because the zoning categories that have like a lower density, like a 1 unit per acre zone, lower density, have larger lot size requirements, and so it didn't give them as much flexibility to lay out the lots and have that open space and stormwater. That was my understanding of the reason they chose the R20 SF to go with it.
Okay.
Mhm.
I might come up with something else, but
Mm-hmm.
let's hear from these folks. Reed, we'll start with you.
Just making sure, I'm gonna follow up on Scott's question, just making sure I actually understand what you're saying. Basically, if we did the 1 unit per acre, then every single lot would have to be a minimum of an acre. Versus by doing it this way, you can have half-acre lots and have big open zones or whatever, and that's how it kind of compiles it together. Is that it gives them more flexibility in how they can lay it out.
Correct. So for example, if they were to use, say, like a rural transition, or rural transition zoning or an agriculture zoning, it's a minimum 1 acre lot size.
Right.
So you're basically using the whole land up for just lots. Doesn't even really give you enough room to put in your roadways with your minimum 50-foot right-of-way.
Right.
And drainage. So this allows you to get the 50 lots, but still provide the infrastructure and that open space and cluster the lots.
That's kind of how I understood it. I just want to make sure, because then you basically, if you did 56, it's 56 acres,
Yeah.
point, and whatever. If you did the 1 acre designation, you're talking, yeah, okay, you've capped it at 56, but reality is by the time you do infrastructure and you put in, everything else, you're never getting there. Versus this way, you can still get the 50 homes and you get the infrastructure. Makes perfect sense to me, so I'm fine with that. What I want to talk about, and this is going to be a huge thing, this is how I'm going to get to yes or no, is how we got from this being denied before to where we're looking at it again, and it hasn't been the full 12 months. Because that's my only, that's my real hang up that I have, is that the previous zoning was a PUD, as I understand it, and now we're looking at this R-20, and so they're completely different, but yet they're not totally different, because we're still building single-family homes on 56 acres. So I'm just trying to understand how, because it talks about, you know, when it's, you know, it's a subsequent application being a similar rezoning. We're saying this isn't similar.
So that was the determination that was made by the community development staff, and the legal department reviewed that and made a determination that this was not similar because it was more than half of a reduction in the number of units, and it was not a PUD zoning, it was a conventional zoning, and because it was a reduction in over half of the original request, that it was not similar.
Okay. So that's I feel like that's the only question I've been asked, is why we're not waiting 12 months to review this. That's been the one thing I've been asked about the most. So I'm good on questions for now. I want to hear what the public has to say. I'll probably have one or two more, but I'm good for now.
Okay.
Tracy?
So, stemming off of what Reese said, Matt, what is the legalese? I mean, we're hearing one thing, and I have to agree with Reed. You know, it seems like the same application. Do we have recourse back on this?
Related to the 12-month period,
Yes.
I would say there's, you know, your ordinance on that topic doesn't give you, you know, any very specific criteria. So, you know, I think she very well stated what we thought, you know, was the significant differences that would have allowed it to be different, a different zoning application that can move forward. I mean, you're free to certainly interpret that differently. I don't have a lot of criteria to go by to say, this is what's substantially different, this is what is not. So, you know, we can only weigh it with, you know, the facts that we have in front of us, which, you know, we've stated, I think, what the differences are.
Yeah.
But if that's not different enough, I mean, you know, you're free to make that interpretation.
Okay. Now, the one question I do have is we got it down where they're saying 50 lots. If we approve this and the engineer comes back and goes, hey, we've tweaked it, could they come back in and say there's more homes to be allowed on there? I mean, where's that stop at?
I mean, I think there's been a public discussion of 50. I'm sure the applicant will state, just like he did at Planning Commission, that's their cap, that's their max, that's what they're committing to, is no more than 50.
But is that a hard line?
Technically not. I know from a staff standpoint, if they brought something forward, you know, that we would say, this is not what you presented at a public hearing.
Okay.
There could be some additional ways to strengthen that, but it's up to the council, you know, what your prerogative is on that.
I'd really like to hear from the applicant on that they don't come back, you know, and they come back and they say it's 70 and we're talking 50 now, that's an issue.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be going back and forth with the applicant or the citizens.
And I will add that they had to reapply to the Volusia County School District for an adequacy determination, and they only applied for 50 units,
Okay.
so.
All right.
That's it?
That's it.
Sean?
No, I have nothing. Nothing yet.
Nothing from you. So I'm just struggling with that. Like, I feel like that future land use designation doesn't match where we're trying to go. So that's just in my, and I get that things kind of through the application process, they start off one way and they go the other. I guess my thing is, you know, the last year or so, we have followed some legislative stuff coming out of Tallahassee. And I'm a big supporter of land ownership rights. I really am, and I think we should be that as an elected body. And so, you know, I'm not a anti-build, anti-development. I want good developments and I want good products. And I know this particular builder developer has produced a lot of really good ones. And so, you know, that all that to say, I just feel like it doesn't look right in terms of having an FLU that looks different than where we're trying to get to. And I understand the application process, and then as you get farther down that process, when you start looking at the actual zoning designation and what can go there, that's just where in my mind I'm kind of hung up a little bit on that. So, but we'll hear from the applicant, and we'll come back to you for some follow-up questions. To Tracy's point, I will say as you're reflecting, I think his question I would like to hear more on when you say there may be other ways to strengthen that. I want to know what those are tonight. So
Would you like me to speak to that?
would you like to?
Yeah, sure.
Go right ahead.
So one thing you could do, I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but one thing you could do is you could amend the ordinance tonight to add a policy that goes with the future land use amendment, basically a property-specific policy. We've done this in the past. There's a property-specific policy that limits the specific number of units in square footage, say, for example, at the Woodhaven property. There was one at the Hammock Preserve PUD. There was a policy addition with that land use amendment and a few others throughout town. And so basically what happens is, in addition to just a map amendment, there would be a text amendment in the future land use element that basically lists these 3 parcels and says any development on these 3 parcels is limited to a density of 1 unit per acre. And that's their max density. They could never do anything more than that without coming back with another future land use amendment to remove that policy.
And that's a ratio, right? If we do it like that, is that set up like a ratio?
It's just a gross density.
Right. So
Yeah,
what I'm saying
yeah.
is, I guess what I'm saying ratio. So let's say I have 50 acres of land, and I want to do
Yeah.
something like that. I'm not going to be held to. I've got to build a home on each 1 acre.
No, it's a
I can
gross-
still build
it's-
50 homes on 50 acres, but the homes might sit on half-acre lots or 3/4 acre.
Correct. It's
Correct.
a gross density,
Okay, all right,
and then your
okay.
zoning and your site
Tracking.
in your subdivision.
And that can be amended in.
Huh?
And
Do that tonight.
that can be amended in tonight.
Yes, but I'll defer to the attorney as far as, if that can be done tonight or whether, we need to do anything different with the ordinance again.
All right. Well, we'll hold on that then for right now, and let's hear from the applicant. Thank you, Penny. Well done. Welcome, sir.
And I didn't wear green, so I am.
Sorry about your luck.
Get the bucket.
I'll donate time. Okay. Good evening, Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant, and I'm going to touch on a lot of what I heard, but to try to move through some of this presentation and talk about it when we get to those pertinent points. As Penny had pointed out, she pointed out the zoning, future land use, the relative entitlements on the property, where we're trying to go from this, and as she had mentioned in the narrative of how we got here, the original ask and the original representation was the 113 that was stated in the staff report. We've been very transparent throughout this process that was the original request, and moving forward, of course, that's, it happens the way it happens, but, tonight here, what we're asking for is that straight zoning category. And the request itself, just by implication of applying the zoning category, is 50 units. That's the maximum. I think a good example is if you look over at probably Quiet Place is probably a good example. There's no necessarily stormwater tracks that are identified independent of the lots, or maybe not a private roads is not probably a good example for that, but those are the type of things that you have to less out immediately when you're talking about net acreage that you can utilize for density. So that's just how all modern subdivisions are done. Those tracks are set aside. You can't pack in more homes. So if you're talking in terms of raw numbers, it makes sense that when you hear that it's the 0 to 2, that there's this hypothetical maximum of 113 arguably, but that's an impossibility. If you apply the R20 single family standards, the hypothetical maximum is 50 out, and that's just it. It's just by implication of code, stormwater standards, roadways, open space. Those minimums are outlined in the code and you can't avoid them, which is a very big distinction in process when we're talking about that substantial rezoning request distinction. Of course, we have a density distinction that's massive in terms of what you would be entitled to, but you have a very different design criteria that has to apply the code minimums that don't have
deviations, and just the rural character is very different. That when you're talking about 50 units versus 113 units, that's double. That, from a neighborhood perspective, I would imagine that looks very different on a zoning perspective. The future land use part of this, again, this is the zoning category that Kenny had mentioned. This is the zoning map. We're surrounded by PUDs, and by their nature, this is actually the, I think the property that may be a little bit of a distinction in this map, because it's not going to be a PUD if approved tonight and moving forward, and that it's a straight zoning category using a city R20 standards. And interestingly enough, applying a future land use of anything but 0 to 2 actually is the odd man out when it looks like what the minimum density is from the zoning or the future land use maps perspective. And Penny touched on this, and some of what was the rub in trying to figure out what the appropriate future land use moving forward would be the compatible zoning districts that are outlined in the comp plan, but also that 50 number is very close to the 1. And it wasn't clear at the application stage, well, what side are we falling on? Are we going to be 1.01 or are we going to be 0.99? So that number was relevant in that regards. And that's where I would imagine that a lot of what moved forward with staff is, from a policy perspective, it's compatible. It's a compatible district that we'd want to move to. I think the unintended consequence that maybe helps alleviate concerns is that, as Penny mentioned, you have to analyze the maximum when you talk about impacts. So from a perspective of application and moving forward in our analysis, we actually had to analyze an impact that never would be possible. We'd be half of it. And from a policy setting perspective on concurrency for the city and master planning, what they do with stormwater or utilities, traffic, highest and best hypothetical density in a future land use perspective is not something that's even achievable, but we have to analyze it. The other thing that Penny had mentioned that we were also talking about this internally that made sense from our perspective is the representation is 50 units, and if that moves forward, then the project's designed to be that. Whether it takes a policy perspective to get there, 1 gross unit per acre accomplishes that goal, or whatever language moves forward, there's no problem with that. And from a policy setting perspective, that becomes the ceiling. That's not the floor anymore. There's no range of 0 to 2. It's the ceiling is 50, and anything below that is how city staff's going to apply their standards to.
So are you stipulating to that requirement?
Yes, and we have no problem stipulating to that as a condition moving forward as part of this. Again, out of transparency, that is what the applicant.
Which is the policy that Penny was educating us
Correct.
on.
Yes, and that would be specific language in your comp plan relative to this property, and you would have to amend the comp plan to get there if you ever wanted to deviate from it.
Okay.
History of the site, this is just, again, some old knowledge of how we got here. It's been many iterations. The current proposal, this is just a generalized example. It still would have to go through subdivision. It's a proposal that cuts the density in half, which theoretically is 50 units. The nice part about this is if you apply the minimum standards, you get to about a 20% impervious coverage, which is very low for subdivision. Here's another example. There's a lot of ways to skin this cat, and from a subdivision perspective, that would be something that would have to be reviewed with staff. But that's a requirement that still is a step that they would have to go through. And really, what you're setting is the minimum guidelines that come from a density perspective, and the ground rules that whoever from Paytas's perspective, what they move forward with has to abide by. It's a compatible zoning district from a rural perspective. It's a minimum 100 foot, which it has to be a half acre in terms of minimum lot area. Has on the property it's 60%. The hypothetical maximum is 50 lots. It achieves a lot of the goals that were raised that we have heard over the last several months in terms of larger lots, less density, less impervious. The properties are clear cattle pastures, so it's from an impacted standpoint, it's one of those infills that you look for when you're talking about what would probably be an appropriate site, even though, of course, I recognize that folks can differ about what the appropriate use is, but from a development perspective, that this makes sense from what I would imagine as a developable site. No waivers or variances. Nothing is being requested as part of this. Again, like I said, roadway capacities were analyzed at a highest and best use of, up to 2 units per acre. And again, we're half of that. Representations are the same. No connections to Charles Street, except for emergency vehicles, as has always been the case. And the part about this, and you all are obviously familiar with the Paytas family, that they've remained involved, and even with just from their perspective, the outcome that they were disappointed with, that they still see this property as a potential for the betterment of the community, and in that respect, I do applaud them for sticking it out. But again, trying to be receptive to neighbors. A lot of what's happened post the last hearings, there was a lot of outreach to the neighborhoods, trying to make sure that they're engaged in terms of the fly-in, especially, and how just the nature of how that transpired. We actually do have a conceptual agreement with them that's been signed to reach an understanding on how this property will move forward and how we can help them. So again, it's a lot of doing the right things independent of just this zoning request in a vacuum.
Conceptual agreement signed by who?
The HOA president and the
Of the fly.
correct.
Okay.
And obviously the contract purchaser. The benefits that we had mentioned, it's rural in character, just as this property, again, at 50 units, that's a half-acre lot. So you have the spin-off of the, obviously the jobs, the businesses. You guys have heard this before in other projects, and it's filling a developable pocket that's a major step down in density. That it establishes, again, those ground rules. It's less runoff to Spruce Creek. We have the St. John's requirements that kicked in this year for those heightened standards in terms of nutrient treatment and how the project has to be designed. We do have the engineer available too, that he's welcome if you have any specific questions as to that. Just keeping in mind that the subdivision still needs to be designed and those perspectives, but we're ready and available for those questions, and further protecting the creek in that regard. So outside of that, it makes sense from an overall policy perspective of how the map again lays out in terms of density. It's a major step down, especially for the area and anything that's in the jurisdiction of the city. It's compatible from both a future land use and a zoning perspective, and to alleviate further concerns about the representations of the applicant and moving forward, it's there's no issue with the policy change to cap that ceiling of what the density is possible on this property to make sure that that always stays the case. So with that, I'm available for questions. We have the team here too, and that's the presentation.
In fact, we'll see if anybody wants to ask any questions at this time.
So again, I think what we're saying here,
We'll
Mr.
come
Mayor.
back to us in a minute. Did you have any questions for him specifically?
Well, no, I'm just in general, just
Oh.
talking about in general about what the zoning is that, again, he's talking about 50 houses or 50 lots on 56 acres. So it would be 1 per 1, but that's not the case, because if you look at these layouts, you've got way more, these lots could be smaller than half-acre lots in reality, because of the amount of roadways, dry ponds, and wet ponds. That's the stuff that makes the difference, not necessarily the lots and lot sizes, more so the common area to me is what makes the difference. So when we talk about this zoning of 0 to 2, obviously that's a maximum. Could be 0. You know what I mean? But am I correct? So I just want to clarify that. So, okay.
Anything else?
Not yet.
No, nothing.
Very good. Reed?
Oh yeah, I'm loaded over here. All right, this question, I guess I'll start here, Joey. Why R20 and not another PUD with the same number of homes?
Well-
Can you explain?
I think the hesitation was making sure we didn't trip anything that we thought may be controversial and create an image that, when you hear PUD, it doesn't matter what form that PUD takes.
Right.
And I think that's the narrative we didn't want to get caught in, even though you can easily design a PUD that's substantially different from the project. That's a truth.
Yeah.
But whether that matters for how folks perceive the project, very different. And that was what the judgment call was, that if we call it a PUD, it doesn't matter what we design. That in essence, it's going to be the same PUD that was here last October. It's not going to be a new PUD. So to achieve the goal, well, there's a zoning category that has that minimum half-acre lot requirement, and let's just pursue that. And that way, you're talking apples and oranges. It's very different. That, you know, we're being transparent about the minimum requirements, and when you look at it in a vacuum, you say, oh, this is different. This is a zoning category that has a rural nature to it. This is a zoning category that is a negotiated agreement that can look like this, but in terms of our perception of it, is a PUD.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that. That's a great answer to that too. Lance, and we're getting into lot sizes just a little bit. Is there anything, and this might be actually a penny question, is there anything in here that actually requires a minimum lot size for that concern? Because yes, it's unit per acre, but it still would have to be at least quarter acre lots if I'm doing or it had to be more than that, wouldn't it?
20,000 square.
It's 20,000 square feet, 100 wide.
Correct. So
We'd have to meet that.
that was listed on one of the slides there, and also in the staff report, dimensional requirements. It has a 20,000 square foot lot area and a minimum lot width of 100 feet.
Good. Okay, that takes care of that too. I'm going to ask these questions, and I'm hoping you can give me an answer, but I also understand this is with respect to the business, because I understand what it's like to do business and not be able to necessarily give away some information. Do you know what the average square foot of the home goal is by any means at all? Ballpark. Okay. Excellent. Any idea on what we're like a price target at all, or is it too early for that?
800 to $1.2 million.
Okay. That's a great straight answer. I appreciate that. And that actually kind of answers what was going to be my last question, is that, you know, when you guys were here with the same piece of property,
Right.
we had 113 homes, and we talked about reducing that. You said almost verbatim is we couldn't cut any homes because we couldn't make any money.
Correct.
So then we're here and we've cut over half the homes.
Right.
Now clearly that's because we're going up in square footage and we're going up in size and lots and everything. But that is going to be something, that's one of the things that I was watching back the last meeting and sitting here today, is how we go from we can't cut any to we cut 63. And that, I need you to
And I do have an
address
answer for that. And I think, Jim, cut me off when I'm saying too much. But, you know, the real risk with that path was that at the current contract price, with the current contract requirements, that was truth, that we didn't have a choice.
Right.
So the moment that became set in stone on the outcome is the moment that Jim had nothing.
Right.
Because you can't obviously move forward with this project at what was agreed to on that side of the deal with the design. So over the next, it was several months to work out the terms of that detail. That's where this became a feasible project again to move forward with, because we had to work with 3 separate owners.
Okay.
And that was the real risk, and that was the part of this process that became essentially a dice roll. You don't know the whims of 3 people and what their perspective is going to be, and that would be the largest portion of why we're back here and half the units is a feasible project.
I appreciate you answering that again. Like I
Yeah.
said, I know I don't want you to show your hand too much, but I still want to try to acquire information. So I don't really think I have anything else to say until I at least hear from the audience. I'll have at least one more comment then, but otherwise I'm good on questions.
Okay.
So I will just say that I appreciate your interest and willingness to exercise this policy change that Penny is briefing us about, and at some point there I'll be asking, I guess maybe the city attorney to walk us through what we would need to do to put that, because that does make me feel better.
Okay.
To me, at least in my mind, and I understand staff's explanation and your explanation and Mr. Pay's, everybody's, I got that, but
Yeah.
the way I see it, I guess there is a way to make that look the way it's intended to be, I guess. It's a smell test, right?
Understood,
So,
understood.
Yeah, look test, whatever we want to call it that. Just out of curiosity,
Mhm.
if this works out and you've got 50 lots, let's say, and somebody comes in and says, you know what, I want to build a really big house. I want to buy 2 lots contiguous and build a big house. Can that be done?
Yes, all they'd have to do is meet the minimum subdivision standards for that zoning category,
Okay.
so there'd be no issue.
So you could conceivably,
Mhm.
you may have if there's an interest, you may have less homes and
Correct.
just bigger of them.
You looking to move, Scott?
Nope.
50 is the hypothetical ceiling, maximizing the property.
Got it.
That
Okay.
would be-
Understood. That was just my question. All right, why don't we, I know for sure we got at least one gentleman that wants to speak. Victor Lopez, Father Lopez? Welcome, sir.
Good evening. I'm sorry I didn't wear green, but this is the uniform of the day.
You, my friend, get a pass.
Mr. Pettis, I want to thank him very much. He's made a number of concessions which are very palatable to all people in Spruce Creek, especially myself since I face that property. But there are two items that I would like to address the council with. First is, when you rejected this the first time, one of the things that you took into consideration was the fact that the Spruce Creek Water Basin Report was in progress. That basin report is due out possibly by April, maybe by June, I would say. And that has not been considered. It may totally confirm everything that the planning has done, but it is not yet out. The second item I will address to the city attorney. When this item first came to the Planning Commission back in last year, Mr. Schmidt recused himself from voting, saying he was the accountant for Mr. Pettis for 30 years. This time he voted in favor of passing it on to the council. Had he recused himself, it would have been 2-2. The item would not come before you. What facts and circumstances changed to avoid the appearance of nepotism and an ethics violation?
Anything else?
No, that's it.
I will go ahead and let the city attorney respond to that, because I know he's got the answer, because it's already been asked.
Yeah, we had actually received a written statement by the commission member Schmidt that he no longer was engaged by Mr. Pettis, and therefore, at the time of the vote, there was no longer a conflict. And as required by state law, where there is no legal voting conflict, you are required to vote.
Right, okay, very good. All right, anybody else in the public wish to speak to this? No?
Can we clarify one more thing?
Sure, we're back to council now, so go right ahead, it's your turn.
Yeah, so if our planning commission doesn't approve a project, they can still bring the project to us, correct?
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure he understands that, and everyone else does. The planning commission makes a recommendation, and it doesn't mean it ends there. It's still going to come to us. Am I correct? So I just want to clarify that, because a lot of things are said at that podium that aren't true. And we got to make sure that the public understands that we can have a project fail at the planning commission and they can still bring it forward to us. We still then make that decision. We take it into consideration. But
And just to clarify what the city attorney just said, is that issue was raised, city attorney looked into it, there is not a conflict any longer because that employment relationship no longer exists, and because of that, the commission member is required by law. He does not have an opportunity to abstain in that scenario. Is that right, Matt?
That is correct.
Okay. And I'm not an attorney, but I got that pretty close.
pretty
All right.
good.
So back to us. Penny, you want to come back up? You guys have any additional questions? I'm going to ask Penny and Matt to help coach us through this change of a property policy ordinance in a minute, and how we would go about doing that. But any technical aspects or questions for Penny on the?
Penny, you can give a yes, no to this pretty much, but can you just kind of back up what Mr. Posey was saying about the PUD versus R20, and that they're really, they're pretty hand in hand. There's not like one disadvantage or advantage one way or the other.
So we would not
in
be,
this case.
we wouldn't be able to bring forward to you a PUD because it would be a similar zoning district.
Okay.
That was the main consideration.
All right.
A PUD was denied. We can't bring you back
I,
another
that's,
PUD.
like, I just want an answer. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
What else you got?
I don't think I have any more technical questions. I do notice that this property, we talked about, it's on Charles Street. We already have a Charles Street on the east side of Port Orange. Do we have the ability to rename that road? I know it's not really in topic to what we're doing here right now, but
It's a
it's
county road, but we have contacts we could discuss, but there's people with addresses linked to it and bills and.
yeah, I understand.
Foley Road, or?
No, please, anything but.
Tracy?
No, I'm good.
No? Okay. Lance, anything else?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, Sean?
No.
Okay, so then I guess that brings back to me. So I would definitely, in my assessment of this, see this as a very significant change from where this was, I think you said 6 months ago. That was long, it seems like it was
October.
not that long ago, but I think it's a very, very significant change in the volume and the density of the units. And in my mind, I would say that box, at least for me, to be able to this to come back inside of 12 months is worthy. It's okay. It's definitely not the same project in the shape as I see it. Yeah, I get it. They're building homes. That's about it. But what I would like to see is, if there's consensus here on council, I really like to see us tighten up with that policy change that you mentioned that they've stipulated to, and walk us through how to do that.
Okay.
I just think that it makes for a nicer, neater package. It looks the way it's supposed to be. I think it's functional and clearly it's what they're willing to do as well. So I truly appreciate that. How do we do that?
Okay, so basically the ordinance would need to be amended in two places. The title block,
Which ordinance?
the future
First-
land use,
Okay.
the first one, -2. The title block would be amended to also add or reference to a text amendment. And an exhibit would be added to the ordinance that shows the proposed text amendment to the future land use element, and it would be to add policy 1.4.18. And that policy would be written to read, it would list the 3 parcel numbers and say parcel X, Y, and Z. I don't have all their numbers memorized right now, but parcel X, Y, and Z, any development on parcel X, Y, and Z has a gross density limited to 1 unit per acre.
X, Y, and Z cumulative.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
Right.
wordsmith it, but I went back and saw the last one that we did, so the policy number in order for this would be, proposed policy 1.4.18.
And you're
Can
gonna,
we-
so this is 2 readings anyway, so we're gonna have an opportunity to bring it back on second reading and revise ordinance that has everything that she just mentioned. I
Okay.
think we generally gotta understand, if that's the will of the council, what I'd ask for is on ordinance number 2026-2, whoever made the motion and second, if we could just withdraw that, we can make a new motion with an amendment to the ordinance, as Penny has discussed, and then we'll bring that back to you on second reading with those revisions to implement this stipulated policy cap of 1 unit in the aggregate per acre.
Okay, so you need.
Who was
Dan
the-
made the motion, right?
So,
You got all that?
Well, and that's on item
You're
2.
welcome to have him coach you through this.
That's on the first item that was opened, ordinance
Right,
2026-2.
2026-2,
Yes.
sorry.
Mhm.
First item, number 2.
Okay, so are we still having discussion on that, Mr. Mayor? 'Cause I'm a little confused.
Jump right in.
So, I'm confused to what we're saying here. We're gonna put down a text amendment that says 1 house per acre?
We're gonna make the future land use designation match what it is the applicant is actually wanting to do. So
Which
instead
is
of-
0 to 2.
So
No,
the
which
future
would be
land use
1.
category that's been applied for has the range of 0 to 2. And what is being discussed is, in addition to the land use change, to add a policy on top of it that caps it at actually 1 unit per acre. It doesn't provide for the whole range. Although the category allows 0 to 2, the policy will limit the property to just 1 unit per acre.
Which is what the applicants.
But, okay, so gross density over the 56 acres.
Correct.
Okay, understood.
So it actually becomes a maximum of 56 homes, but
Theoretically.
Theoretically.
Not 50, but 56. But it's a way to do it. It's a way to do it. So, and this doesn't. I want to just say I want to give some credit to Mr. Paytas and Posey and the entire team here. You don't have a developer come back around a second time all the time and work this hard to reduce density and try to bring a good project to the city and everything else. You know, we become so anti-development at a county level in a lot of things, and not every project is bad. And so, I think you guys being willing to be so amendable and flexible and come in and make some serious concessions and go talk to the HOA that isn't even Port Orange voters and go sit with them and talk to them and make sure that they were going to be okay with this because of the number of residents that live there. You guys have done a lot of homework and things, and so if we're able to get this in writing without delaying you, that would make me
pretty happy here at this point.
I would concur. All right, I'm gonna put this ball in your court with the oversight of the city attorney. Tell us what we gotta do here.
So first step is withdrawing the motion specifically for ordinance number 2026-2, the future land use designation.
Okay, we're going to withdraw 2026-2.
Your motion and your second's withdrawn as well?
Yes.
Okay, so now you can start fresh.
Then we'll start with a fresh motion on ordinance number 2026-2 with adding to the policy 1.4.18, amend the development use of gross density of 1 unit per acre.
I like it.
You good with that?
We're good with that.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from council on it?
I think
Good to call the roll?
So
Go
are
back
we
to the
calling the
public.
roll?
Oh, anybody else in the public want to come back and get in the middle of all that? You're welcome to it. No? Okay. Back to council. Last chance for discussion.
So are we calling the roll for this project?
Just for item 18, that's just
Just
to
that ordinance.
change the future, there'll be a policy change in that future land use amendment to be no more than 1 unit per acre as opposed to up to 2 units per acre essentially.
Okay.
Okay? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Foley,
yes.
Councilman Gephardt.
Yes.
Councilman Green,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grubbs,
Yes.
Mayor Stone.
Yes, 5-0. All right, we don't need to amend anything on this one?
There's a second ordinance. There's no amendment necessary here that I am aware of.
All right. We're not gonna make this muddied anymore. All right, I'll have the clerk call the roll on ordinance number 2026-3 with a motion and a second already on the floor.
Mr. Mayor, so is this the final of this project being approved?
This is the zoning
This is the
portion.
zoning
So the first
portion.
one was future land use. This is the R20 SF zoning.
Okay.
Councilman Foley,
Yes.
Councilman Gephardt.
Yes.
Councilman Green,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Grubbs,
Yes.
Mayor Stone.
Yes, 5-0. Thank you guys for all the work y'all put into it. All right, that brings us to item number 20, first reading of ordinance number 2026-4, LDC amendment, chapters 2 and 16, outdoor donation bins and temporary storage containers.
Sure, that's an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 2, definitions and interpretations, and Chapter 16, miscellaneous regulations relating to outside storage, establishing standards for outdoor donation bins, and establishing standards for temporary storage containers on non-residential properties associated with construction and renovation projects, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
All of you.
Good evening, Penelope Cruz, planning again.
We need a motion first.
Oh, yes,
Oh, I'm
that's what I was
sorry.
waiting for.
Back to me. Hang on a second.
Back to you.
Get a motion for ordinance number 2026-4.
Second.
Go ahead.
A
All
motion
right.
and a second on the floor.
All right, Penelope Cruz Planning. So the proposed amendments in this package are intended to enhance the existing code as part of the city's ongoing maintenance. We try to bring forward code amendments. Our original land development code was adopted in like 1996, and so every year we try to bring a few code amendments to kind of clean it up, bring it up to date. These particular amendments that were just opened include issues addressed when applying the code, including regulations for outdoor donation bins and temporary storage containers. So the proposed amendments are to Chapter 16 to establish some clear, consistent, and enforceable standards to outdoor donation bins. Previously, we were having to handle this situation with classifying them as service areas. And service areas really in the Land Development Code apply to mechanical equipment and elements that are associated with a principal building, such as their dumpster, HVACs, things like that. Donation bins are typically owned and operated, managed by a totally different owner than the property, so they're really not service areas for the principal structure. So this amendment adds a clear definition for the donation bin and establishes standards for addressing location, size, appearance, number, operation, and maintenance. And the regulations are designed to improve the aesthetics, public safety, and ensure functionality and clear enforcement mechanisms for code enforcement. All the details of that are in the staff report. The next part of it is regarding temporary storage containers. So Chapter 16 establishes regulations for temporary storage containers on residential property, and we have regulations for just standard outdoor storage for a non-residential property that has to be screened and things like that. Wasn't really clear standards for temporary storage on non-residential. And so again, this has been an issue that codes had some, hasn't had clear enforcement regulations on. So under this proposed amendment, temporary storage containers would be permitted in association with active building permits or approved site improvements for the duration of that permit, and some flexibility if there's things that need to go on, moving in, things like that after you get your CO. And then they have to be removed, obviously, once you get your CO, certificate of completion, final inspection, with some flexibility built in there for situations when you're still trying to move everything in. And it's basically consistent standards now for all the different properties in the city. So that's really it for this first part, this first ordinance. Here to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Penny?
I didn't have any questions on this. I did bring this up to Wayne and Robin, and I just wanted to make sure something when the CO was done is, everything being cleared out. And Lance, I thought of you and your business and what I just went through doing my business and regutting it and getting everything done. Sometimes you have a container sitting there, even though you got the CO, and it's trying to get it picked up, all your tools and everything packed up and moved. And the one thing they pointed out, and it's in the grant here, it says may grant approval for unique circumstances for extensions when warranted, 30 days, whatever it is, once the CO's done, to get your stuff off the premises and that nature. So thank you for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm.
Containers have become a huge business. It makes sense to stay on top of this and clean things up a little bit. Anybody in the public want to speak to this? Robert, come on up.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. With regard to the outdoor donation bins, I think you should just drop the whole thing, because why do you care? As long as it's between the owner of the property and this donation outfit, what they do with their bins, who cares, As long as they don't put it in a parking space, but that's really a code enforcement action. And so the rest of it you don't need, I don't think. So, thank you.
They almost always get put in the parking spaces for sure. Anybody else in the public want to speak to it? Come on up. And thank you for wearing green. Because you've got on so much green, we're going to forgive Robert and his $500 fine for not wearing anything.
I think we just make them pay her.
Okay, you're good. Yeah.
I remember that it was St. Patrick's Day.
Right ahead.
I'm Shirley Rice, 760 by Rowe Drive, Port Orange. Does this apply with all the codes that Penny read to private property, or is it just businesses? Because to make a private individual like us go through all this code business, like we had a pod in the front of our house on our property for 2 years at our expense, and we didn't do anything with the city, and the city didn't care because we were still flooded twice. So that's my point.
I'll let Penny speak to that for you.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Penny, can you come up and address that? I think I pretty much know all the answers to that, but.
So the code actually already has these same standards for residential properties, and it is very similar to what's being proposed for non-residential, that you're allowed to have temporary storages like pods for the duration of active construction, remodeling, permitting. Sometimes what you're doing doesn't need a permit. That's why there's that flexible language added, because sometimes you're just having to rip out carpet that might have gotten wet or what have you, and that doesn't require a permit. But that's where we have the flexible language. The one thing that doesn't require a permit. But that's where we have the flexible language, where obviously you're going to have things that you need to store and things like that. So yeah, so the same provisions apply to residential properties. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're
I'm
welcome.
really surprised to hear you say that.
Penny, before you walk away, just one more quick question. Some neighborhoods have these little like libraries, like where they'll, you know what I'm talking about? This no way affects that either, right? Okay, cool. Just
And
make
bird
sure.
feeders are still okay, right? All
Come
right.
on, guys, I'm not that bad.
Back to council. Anybody got any more questions? All right, I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Gifford?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grubbs?
Yes.
Mayor Stillman?
Yes, 5-0. You want us to get you a chair? Welcome. I feel bad you have to stand all night. Item 21, first reading of ordinance number 2026-5.
It's an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 2, Definitions and Interpretations, Chapter 14, Architectural Design, and Chapter 15, Signs, relating to design criteria, updating the method for determining whether a color qualifies as an earth tone or pastel to align with current paint industry standards, relating to permanent sign types, specifically murals, clarifying that murals are excluded from paint regulations, except that reflective and fluorescent paints remain prohibited, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and effective date.
Move from ordinance number 2026-5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The item is on the floor. When all of us ran for election, this was all on our campaign. I mean, we were talking about this, so.
This is the really fun
We all
one.
have
This is a
opinions
really,
about-
really
that's
big
right,
one
listen.
tonight.
We all have opinions about earth tones, so we could be here till 11. I'm just saying.
No, figures planning. Yeah, this
All
is
yours.
this is really in the weeds with planning here.
got
So I have a lot of details here that I can get into about LRV and all that stuff. But basically, at the end of the day, what this amendment does is it just gives the planning staff a much more clear-cut, transparent way to determine if proposed colors meet code or not. Because right now, for years, the definition of earth tone was the paint has to have 5% black content or this percentage of white content. And when you call Home Depot or Lowe's or Sherwin-Williams, which I've done many times, they're like, yeah, it doesn't really work that way. We have different bases that we mix paint with, and there's different types of white bases that we mix, and it's not, I can't tell, and sometimes based on the shading or tone, I might use a little bit of this and that, so I could never do the math to tell you what the percentage of white content is in that color. So, and they were kind of, they would kind of reply back like, well, what are you, that's crazy, like that's not correct. So all the experts in the industry have said, you know, LRV is the way to go. And so that's basically what this is doing, is giving us a black and white kind of, literally, literally, a number, like, is it this number or not? And it makes it much clearer for staff to be able to determine if it meets the code. And then obviously when we were looking at that, you know, we realized that the mural provision that we put into the last update for the sign chapter didn't really say, you know, that they were exempt for the colors, and it just takes away that flexibility for artists to provide unique, you know, murals if they were bound to do murals that are only earth tones and pastels.
So if they're painting Nemo on a mural, he can actually look like you.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't have to be a topiary tint.
Exactly. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of it.
Okay, thank you. Council,
Yep.
any questions?
Some
for
beautiful
Ron?
murals around Port Orange.
There's a
There you go.
long-standing saying around these parts that was crafted probably before I was born, that Port Orange was different by choice and not by chance.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
I hope this was not one of those choices.
Are we slow? Are we slowing down there in your department?
No.
We we had to dig something up to dig.
No, but we deal with having to give people answers on the color almost every day. So
Oh, okay.
This
makes
makes
it
y'all's job easier. though.
much easier.
All for it.
Much easier.
Anybody in the public want to speak to this? Back to council. You can definitely tell when you ride around the city whether you're in a neighborhood that has an HOA or not. If you're in a neighborhood that has an HOA, pretty consistent. You get outside that, you're gonna be like, oh, look at that house and that color. And
You know how many different shades of white there are?
oh, there's a bunch.
A lot.
So, all right, clerk, call the roll.
Councilman, excuse me, Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Gifford?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grubbs?
Yes.
Mayor Stillman?
Yes, 5-0. Council committee reports. Item 22, First Step Shelter.
Yes, we had our meeting last Monday, and so far, First Step Shelter has housed over 1,205 people, and 93% of those housed for at least from 2 years ago are still in housing, so it's working. We had our annual banquet earlier in the year, and we generated more than $47,000 in the previous year. So fundraising is working out well. And we had an audit, and the audit report came back clean. And they have over $2.5 million in the bank, and we discussed ways for that money to start working for itself, maybe putting more money in some secured CDs. So things are going really good at First Step Shelter. Move on to the chamber. You got a report today from our former chairman and now business owner in Port Orange. You got a fantastic facility there, by the way. It's amazing. They had a new membership reception this morning. I believe we had 8 new members presenting today.
Okay.
So chamber's doing very well. A lot of energy, a lot of different businesses joining. So it's exciting to see new faces and people from relocating from South Florida, opening businesses here in Port Orange and making their home here in Port Orange and their business here in Port Orange as well. Very exciting.
By the way,
Some
I
business
just-
been here for a long time are now joining for the first time.
And I want to thank you for your connection and involvement with the chamber.
Sure.
So, you know, we all have different lives and different schedules and lots of different commitments, but the chamber is important to us, and it is very nice and beneficial for us to have somebody like yourself who stays very well connected to what's going on. They do a lot for the community. They are very well appreciated. I love what they do for new businesses. I know you and I,
Yeah.
we had a chance to go to a ribbon cutting the other day. It's a car wash, right? How excited can a car wash be? It can be pretty darn exciting.
It was pretty cool.
Like, yeah, I mean, you're like, oh my God, look, I mean, here they are doing a ribbon cutting. It's packed. It's so packed, there's nowhere to park. Not because we're there, but because people are trying to get their cars clean, so.
Well, it was free
Pretty
car
cool.
wash day.
Yeah, free car wash day, but nonetheless. I
I'm a
mean,
member, my parents are a member, they love that car
Yeah,
wash.
sure.
And if you take a tour of that facility, it's amazing what they do there. So, yeah, it's good to see.
Great event, great event. How about Art House? Mr. Groves?
So, Art House, one of the big things is the county cultural grant was awarded to everybody. So that brings funding into Art House. So for the summer programs for the kids, that allows us to have, the Art House to have grants available for the summer kids. So that's a big thing. And then mural projects. We just talked about the one they just did for Pet Evolution, and again, proceeds come back full force to the city to help out with the murals in the Down Under. So hopefully more murals will come out because they get to see the great work they did out there for Dan and his team, and other people will take up on it. So that's it.
Outstanding. And the roundtable of elected officials met. I was not able to attend the meeting, but fortunately for me, this is one that staff goes to as well. So a lot of the stuff that comes out of the roundtable for elected officials is a lot of very, very similar information that we all pick up collectively in other boards and committees. But Wayne, anything in particular related to Port Orange? I know, and by the way, for those that don't know, there's a lot of things that will get discussed in that meeting too that don't necessarily pertain to Port Orange or have as big an impact as it does in one city versus another.
Yeah, the majority of this one, probably more than half of it, was on affordable housing, but the topics that were related to us, there was a conversation about Transform 386. It's one of the regular items, kind of what you brought up tonight. Those stormwater items are going to be regular briefings for almost everything all the governments are doing. So Transform 386 comes up. They talk about the process of the projects. I mentioned those earlier today. It also talks about how well we coordinate, and there's also individual properties that are being purchased under that program, so we've brought some of those forward as well. In addition to that, in the stormwater, there's a flooding subcommittee in the regions. Both of them's briefings generally just go over what we've done. The county has a dashboard, a newsletter, a bunch of different ways that they are getting the word out as well to communicate about projects. We submit to them. They don't, because there's 16 cities, they don't put something from every city in every one, but we make sure they have stuff. So, and I think the most recent one, they went through the information that we had in one of our newsletters on the maintenance that we've done recently. And Robin mentioned that when she was doing her presentation, that with the selective use of outside consultants to get to the harder to reach ditches in the city, we have now had the highest level of maintenance that we've ever had in the history of the city, getting in there and doing that. So that was one of the things that was reported in there and talked about briefly.
Excellent. Also, if you could between you and Robin, I know particularly because you guys really stay up on top of it, but also with the city attorney. Maybe at the next meeting, if somebody could just give us an overview and put on the agenda if you want on some of the legislative updates out of Tallahassee, specifically the ones that will pertain to things we've got going on in the city of Port Orange. So a few things here.
And I'm
some
waiting
of
to
it
hear
takes
the
a
final.
little while to shake out. Yep. Some of it takes a little while to shake out, but whenever that's appropriate, if we can do that, that'd be great.
And we're waiting to get some of the final information, but at this point, it does appear that the whole bunch of the bills that might have affected us did not make it
Right.
through that process. So
Yep.
it's a little easier report because I think we're down to like 4 or 5 of
Yeah.
them that we're printing.
Okay, sounds good. And just the last thing, gentleman standing in the back of the room back there by the double doors. I just want to recognize him. That's Sergeant James Fischetti. We call him Fish. He is a gentleman that has served the Port Orange Police Department for how long? 18 years. I had the pleasure and honor of working with him for many, many years at the police department. I don't get to see him very much. He apparently has taken the initiative to dye a little bit of gray in the beard. But it's always good to see you. Thank you for what you do and continuing to serve. Sergeant Fischetti is one of the best I ever worked with and served, so it's great that we still have him in our police department. Anything else to come before us tonight?
Mayor, one quick thing. I wanted to say this during council comments, and I forgot to. Tonight, the Volusia County Council had an agenda item that was item N on their consent, and it was a $850,000 expenditure approval to go out for a feasibility study to figure out what it would cost and what it would look like to 4-lane Williamson Boulevard from Madeline over the bridge to Town West. Councilman Reinhardt called me today to tell me about that, and it did pass. So we will get to find out just how expensive that is and who we need to start asking to help. So, but they did. It's a great first step for them to do that for sure, and something that would benefit Port Orange greatly. So.
Oh, you're nice.
You're gonna spend $835,000.
All right. Have a good night, guys.